just a minute. All right, we're recording. Today is November 30th, Thursday. Welcome to the Scale Call. We've got an incredible guest today. Kyle Kraft is joining us. I want to give a quick background on why we've got Kyle in, why he's going to be presenting and talking with us. Kyle, first off, just welcome. Hello.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me, Will.
Oh man, we're super excited. So we, for context, you guys are obviously in CEO Finance Academy. I'm Will, by the way. If you don't, a lot of you don't see me that often. I'm in the background running the marketing and helping with the sales side. But Alex and I, we had never been a part of a sales team before. So we were both physical therapists. We got into creating our agency. We were the sales guys in our company. We still were up until about a year ago. And we realized, hey, we need to be able to build a sales team. We need to look at what does that look like. We brought on Scott, who's here. Scott, if you want to wave. Scott, a lot of you guys have met Scott, talked with Scott. Scott is Scott was our very first sales hire. And we realized it wasn't very long, 3 or 4 months in, I realized I didn't know how to train a salesperson. I knew how to do the sales myself. I didn't know how to transfer that skill. I didn't know how to set KPIs for a sales team. So a lot of things that some of you guys will be like, well, that's what I'm used to. I know exactly how to do that. For me, it was a lot harder of a process to transfer this over to somebody else. And Scott can tell you, it was a lot of us just like, I know, I need to help you. And you're like, yeah, help me. And we were just really working through and grunting our way through figuring out how to make that work. And I realized at one point, we talked with Alex, I said, hey, like we need to find somebody who's a great manager, who's great at understanding how to train sales folks. And I happened to join another coaching mastermind program, and I met the wonderful Kyle Kraft right here. And it's been, I don't know, Kyle, how long has it been now? 4 months?
Just over 2 months.
Just over 2 months. Wow. Okay. Which is incredible. Our sales performance has transferred significantly to an incredible degree since we brought on Kyle. And I'm really excited. I say all that. Kyle has genuinely transferred our sales leadership, our sales management. Scott can speak to that too. And Scott, I might even say that as we hype up Kyle here. Scott, what's your experience been since you work with Kyle on a day-to-day basis, having Kyle as somebody who's been managing you on the sales team?
It's been phenomenal to have someone that's been in the trenches for, years in high ticket sales and just know like every nuance of a sales process to help us teach the sales team how to implement this. It's been invaluable. Not to say that you were a bad coach at all, Will, when we first started, but we were just jamming on figuring out what worked and what didn't. And, but it's been awesome to have Kyle come in and like, let's hit the ground running. It's been awesome. So, yeah.
Well, I'll be the first to say I was not the best sales trainer. It was my first time trying to figure it out. And so to bring someone in like Kyle, and I witness it every day on our daily sales team huddles, I'm constantly blown away like, wow, this is exactly what I needed to be doing. And I didn't have a reference point. So all that being said, we're welcoming Kyle. Kyle's got an incredible background. I'm going to let him talk a little about himself. But just so you guys know, for context, Kyle owned his own CrossFit gym for a decade, sold that gym, and has been now working with doing consulting with sales for the last 3 to 4 years on all kinds of different businesses, a lot of them in the higher ticket, higher service space. Kyle, I would love to hand it over to you, my man. And again, guys, if you have any questions as we go through this, don't hesitate to put them in the chat or just wait till probably in 25-30 minutes and we'll have Q&A and open the floor up. So Kyle, I'm going to hand it to you, my man.
Thanks so much, Will.
Yeah.
That's an incredible intro. Thank you again.
Yeah.
I'll just start with a little background. So at this point in the last 8 years, I started high ticket sales about 8 years ago. And as Will mentioned, I came in off the back end of running a CrossFit gym. So one of the reasons and ways that I coach now and how I sell and the philosophy that really launched me into what I'm doing today is when I ran that gym, what I love is people. I love connecting with people. I love knowing what makes them tick, like what motivates them, what drives them, what scares them. And I've always just been fascinated by that. And it worked really well as a CrossFit coach because oftentimes people come in, they're scared of the environment, they're scared of the movements, they just don't know what to expect. And it put me in a position to really connect deeply with people and show them that they had things inside of themselves they didn't even know were there. And to me, it was like the most fulfilling thing ever. And yet to be able to get to that point where you're working intimately with somebody on, a fitness or nutrition or whatever it is challenge that they're doing, that's a really intimate relationship. And, when I started that gym, I didn't really have a formal business background. And so the way I was, growing my gym was just 2 hour long conversations with people in a coffee shop, right? Just like grabbing anyone that would come in, and I would just talk their ear off forever. And through my enthusiasm and my excitement and the hope in my eyes, I could transfer to them about what they could achieve. That's how I was growing things, right? So no real formal process there whatsoever. And unfortunately, it put me in a position about 4 years into my business where we had more month left at the end of the money. You guys ever been in that position? And so, yeah, I didn't stutter my words. We had more month left at the end of the money. And so I realized like one of the things that I was lacking was just sort of like general business acumen around sales, because I knew that it was possible, but it was just sort of like this thing out there I never really had a grasp on. And so I took, at the time, my life savings, invested it into just a little sales course. And from there, just completely dove in head over heels. And what I realized is and I started learning tactics that had been around for 100 years now, the awareness and intention, desire, and action, right? The ADA, like all these different pieces of sales. And it didn't feel right. It didn't feel on the front side of my business, the way I was selling all these tactics that the experts were telling me, it didn't feel like the intimate relationship I had on the coaching side of things. And it put me in this position where, as I started bringing a sales process to my business, I didn't feel good about it, because it's like I had to be two different people out. I don't know if any of you ever felt like you have to sell them one way and then be another way when you deliver, right? And I didn't like that, because I didn't want to come across as incongruent. I didn't want to come across as like a sleazy sales guy. And it bothered me. So what I did is I went in and I have, studied coaching for forever, and I have just tons of resources. And I really pulled out and sort of distilled down and synthesized what are the main things that allow for me to truly connect with somebody, understand what their deep goals are, what the impact of them having those goals achieved would do for them, and really what's in the way of them achieving them, right? And just using all my skill sets around goal setting as a coach. And I brought that forward into my sales process. And I turned it into a way of having a conversation with somebody that built that relationship on the front side of things, where we are intimately connected. They trust me as their guide rather than just some salesperson trying to sling on a gym membership. And we really open up a conversation that allows for me to truly know what they want, why they want it, and then allows me to paint a action plan of how they can go and achieve it. And once that's laid out, we now collaborate together on removing any sort of barriers that might be in the way of them being able to take action. And then we can work together to achieve the goal, right? So for me, this all stemmed from just solving my own problem of like, how do I create a better relationship on the front side, come across as a trusted authority, as a trusted guide rather than a salesperson, and put myself in a position with my prospects of not me sitting across the table from them, but us sitting on the same side of the table, solving their problem together. And so that's where I came up with the Persuasions sales system. And so it worked phenomenally in my gym, but unfortunately, COVID came around, ended up selling my gym in 2020, and then went all into high ticket sales, which I had already been doing for a couple of years. Did that, have run several different accounts. Some of the highlights there just, have enrolled over 900 high ticket clients between $3,000 and $120,000 offers on one or two sales call processes. And then beyond that, some of the other accounts I've grown to from $100,000 a month to $400,000 a month in the span of 30 days. Had done that on a couple of my previous accounts. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Like I said, I just care about people. I have today put together just a quick chat on the 5 immutable laws for managing sales teams scaling to 100K per month. But I guess I was curious more about you guys, because I want to make sure this is actually relevant for you. So I'm curious if any of you guys might just want to pop off, tell me a little bit about maybe you and your business, and maybe some of the goals you have with your sales right now and some of the challenges you've had. And then I can sort of maybe customize this in a way that might help you guys. Would anyone be open to maybe share with me a little bit?
I see Colt, Dana, I see a smirk of like, I don't want to, don't call on me.
I don't bite.
My biggest issue would be just teaching somebody else, because I like to say I'm fairly decent at closing a deal when I'm selling a house, building. So the challenge for me would be teaching somebody else.
And what do you sell? What do you sell, Cole?
I do construction. I build new homes, so custom homes mainly.
Yep. So just transferring your sort of knowledge and skill set to another rep.
Yep.
Sure. And do you have a sales team currently?
I don't. I'm the only guy that does sales. I got a guy that helps me once in a while, but that's it. And I want to kind of push more towards him, but I just don't know how.
Sure. And do you have like is it sort of because you've been doing it forever, you can just kind of go in and figure it out along the way, or do you have like a documented sales process as well?
I don't have a documented sales process, so that would probably help if I had something to follow a little better.
Yep. So I think this will be relevant for you then. Awesome. Any other challenges that you've had besides just kind of like transferring knowledge and skill set over to a rep?
Not that I can think of. I'll probably think of something before we're done, but.
All right, man. Awesome. Yeah, please. Any questions? So I'll make sure we hit on that. Appreciate you coming off and sharing, Colt. Luis, is it Luis or is it Lewis? I don't know.
Luis. Yeah.
Awesome.
Luis, I don't know if you can unmute. Oh, yeah, there we go. There we go.
Yes. So I do run 3 retail stores, and it has barbershops inside as well. But our retail stores, they do have some high ticket items, which is anywhere from like $300 to $600 shoes. They're sneakers, exclusive sneakers. We do have some exclusive shirts as well, like the streetwear clothing that it could run anywhere from like $150 to $250 for some t-shirts. So we have a sales team on the floor. We had a sales manager at one point, but then what we did is we put the sales operations or the sales goals and stuff like that towards our managers. And then basically our sales manager went into the role of district manager just to kind of go over the managers and the team's goals and stuff like that. So, with that being said, some of the challenges that we have, is trying to figure out what is the best incentive to drive sales for our staff to stay motivated, right? Also, we don't have our SOPs 100%. We're right now we're currently working on something called Connect Team, and Connect Team is a software that allows us to communicate through departments, right, and allows us to create tasks and onboarding. Like, let's just say a new salesperson comes in, we have like an onboarding presentation for them, but we don't have it 100% yet because we just started that Connect Team app for our operations. So just some whatever I can we can share and stuff like that. I mean, obviously we're out here together for the same purpose, was to grow, right? But that's pretty much where I'm at, and that's where we stand at as far as sales.
Okay, awesome, Luis. I'll definitely hit on that in terms of incentivizing your sales reps. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything else? Maybe just one more. Would love to hear, like maybe another industry and just kind of like what you're currently doing for selling and any of the challenges you have, guys. Just anyone else care to come off? Otherwise, I can roll. Yeah, come on off. Is it Danya? Oh, I'm sorry, and you're muted. By the way,
unmute here. Let me unmute
button so I can hear your awesome voice.
Sorry. Hi.
Hi.
Sorry. I'm on the road, as you can see, but not driving. Anyway, yeah, we do weddings. We do wedding sales, and I really like what you said about because you did coaching essentially. So you're like, conveying this information and like working with someone to solve this problem. So we essentially collaborate with people, and it's a very personal thing because it's a person's wedding. So I don't do the sales anymore. I actually have one sales girl that does everything. She kills it. I just kind of handed it all off to her because she's doing such a great job. I'm just like, okay, fine. The thing that I always struggled with is that I would get attached to people would get attached to me in the process. And then I have a team of coordinators and planners. I'm like, well, you're not necessarily going to be working with me. So it's always like about selling my team and giving, I guess, conveying the confidence that I have in my team to the client. My sales girl seems to be doing it really well. I don't know that I have an exact process. I think we do have like a workflow from point A to, point Z to get them booking. And then we do have a process, but I guess I just kind of connected with what you were saying with trying to convey the information and being able to work alongside someone. And then how do I essentially, I don't know how my sales girl does it. She does it. She's like, oh no, don't worry, we got a team, and then we assign people and that's it,
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, I guess that's all. That's my main challenge,
perfect.
I guess.
So that won't fit necessarily in, but I definitely want to come back and hit you with a couple of thoughts on that, because I absolutely have felt that before when someone like the gym business, when you're doing all one-to-ones and you go to group and then you have to hire other coaches, you want coaches to take those 5 a.m.s as soon as possible. And so the clients, sometimes they have this attachment to you is sort of what I'm hearing, right? Versus like another coach that you put in your place. And often that comes down to the idea that like you have to have your own like mechanism or pathway, right? And that mechanism, that pathway is what solves their problem versus you being the actual problem solver. So we can dive into that in a little bit, but I really appreciate you sharing. Awesome. All right, guys. So I'm going to just kind of dive in here and bear with me, because again, like this is, I usually coach like super tactical sales. So this is kind of pulling back a little bit to high level. I'm going to share my screen just to keep me on track, and then you guys can see what I'm looking at too. All right, so this is 5 immutable laws for managing sales team scaling to 100K a month. Now, if this gets boring and drab, you guys just come off and slap me through Zoom, okay? Because I want to keep this fun. So the first thing is, right, like what's the goal here, right? It's really, can we bring sort of a process into a business that systemizes high performance, right? Like at the end of the day, that's what we're looking at. Can we systemize high performance to create the results that you're in your sales team members? And those results now through the sales team is predictable, it's repeatable, there's consistent cash flow, and it scales easily and simply in less than 10 hours a week, right? Would that actually help you guys? Would that be something you guys would want in your business, or just to make sure we're starting off on alignment here? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So where the gap typically comes in, right, is sales team performance management is really simple, right? It's simple in theory, but it's extremely difficult in implementation due to the nature of sales roles. I'm gonna just, okay. Thank you. It's extremely difficult implementation due to the nature of sales roles being performance and results based, and sort of the emotional toll it places on reps tasked with execution, right? You could almost hear in Danya's voice. She's like, I just threw it all off on her, right? Because she's it's like, it's off my plate, thank God, right? Because it can be a roller coaster. And if you don't have sort of the mental cognition of an ox, it can kind of play on you a little bit. So knowing that, right? If you're in a sales seat and then you step out to try to help someone else with that, and you haven't gotten clear for yourself, it can be a pretty big bear. Additionally, right, the time it takes, this is something I think even Colt had mentioned, the time it takes to coordinate an in-house sales playbook that can be easily transferred to a new rep through like a rapid onboarding, it can create overwhelm and take time away from other areas of the business. It can produce stress outside of normal working hours if you're like, God, I got to get this done. But, it's one of those important but not urgent things, so it keeps getting swept under the rug. And if you've ever gone from selling your own products and services to having one or more sales reps, and you want to keep growing the business without having to dive back into selling, you're going to need a strategy, you're going to need a system, and you're going to need standards to manage and develop a team of A+ sales savages. So the following 5 principles are really what I have kind of extracted out just based on my own reflection here coming in for this call of what I feel is it's truly helped my company, Craft Consulting, create successful sales team management on the accounts I've been on, and also implemented a way of doing that gives your reps leadership they need to continue growing themselves. So today, I just want to share with you guys everything I've learned around this. Like I said, in selling $4 million in high ticket coaching and SaaS to 900 plus clients. And that's what we're going to dive into today. All right. So the first principle here is clear process leads to strong performance. All right. The number one thing that I love, Tony Robbins always says is, right, without a vision, people perish. And so if what often happens is, I think, Colt, not to pick on you, but you do exactly as I have done, and I think every business owner ever does, is they do all the selling themselves because they know the product, they know the industry, they know all the details that go in and can effectively be an advisor to their clients, right? And it's like, how do you package up that knowledge in a way that you can create a process for someone else to do the same thing you can? And the truth is, you can't, okay? Founder owners who have done all the selling up until they hire a rep, you can't ever ask a rep to do what you can do, because the passion, the enthusiasm, the ownership over those things that you're bringing to the table in business when you sell, there's no way to transfer that, right? And so what you have to step away from is we have to start to look at this from a different angle of, okay, first of all, what is the single offer we have, right? What is this one offer? And how do we move a stranger to becoming a paying client on that offer? Okay, that's as simple as we can make it. Now, for my purposes here, like what we do at CEO Finance Academy, this is a very simple diagram. Might look advanced, but it's really not. The main boxes, right, is going to be, there's going to be some sort of discovery call. If that prospect is qualified on that call, we move them to a sales call or a strategy session. From there, we get an enrollment and a new client, right? All the other stuff is just kind of icing on the cake, right? If they don't, we go back to nurturing them. But this is an example, right? If you can't sit down with your sales team and say, this is the way that we sell, here are the steps in our process, they're not going to have a chance, okay? And the way that I look at this now is what we do for a process is we simply then section off for each one of these touch points, essentially, the discovery call, the strategy session. All you need there then are the proper scripts to fill in for each of those, okay? That's the first step in being able to actually systemize a sales process, is you paint out exactly what steps there are and then what is said in each of those steps. You guys with me so far? Trying to keep it super simple. All right. The next thing then, right, is you can have a pathway, but there's a lot that goes in to really, there's a ton of nuances depending on the industry. Like I'm sure, Cole, you could probably go in and you would have a completely different idea as to how to estimate what it's going to cost to build a house than I would, because I've never done it, right? And so it's those nuances, those distinctions you have that are the most important thing to capture to be able to transfer to a rep, but it has to be relevant to your offer, okay? So the way that we do it and how I've been supporting CEO Finance Academy is we have just a simple portal, right? And this is something then that all the reps have access to. And depending on where they're at, they can come in and we can get them on-ramped quickly just by taking them through a pre-recorded course that has all the steps from that process we've designed already walked through, right? With it's like, if here's the discovery call, here's an example of how we do the discovery call, here's the script, here's some frequently asked questions, and we have a ton of information in there so that the on-ramping period, at least getting them up to a baseline where they're able to be coached on more nuances, all that's taken care of sort of automatically, right? Because they're going through a portal and you can manage by seeing how much they've done, and you can set standards like we want to be here by this date, et cetera, moving forward, okay? So that's kind of the second piece. So in terms of just a quick recap on process, right? Number one, you need a visual aid that shows exactly and clearly what the steps are. Number two is you want to have some sort of pathway that you as the owner have taken the time to think through. What are the steps what do I actually say at each of these steps, and how do I advance my clients? And then you have that documented, right? And it doesn't have to be crazy. Like you can just sit there on your computer and make a video just talking about it, but you want to have something as a baseline, because that's going to allow for you to sort of measure and manage moving forward. Cool. The next thing then is, once you have all those things, you want to make sure that you have all of the proper assets organized for a sales team, okay? This is the last key component for making sure that you have a clear vision, right? Because you might be thinking tomato and they might be thinking orange. And what I mean by that is, like, how are we actually speaking to the prospects at every stage? So this is our shared folder. I hope you don't mind. Well, I'm not going to go into the details here, but this is just like for the sales team. When I came in, I dropped in all of the resources that a sales team is going to need to be able to execute on that pathway, right? And so the first, there's a ton of different stuff. I don't know how much detail you guys, or if you have any questions, I can go into more detail. But essentially, you're going to have different buckets depending on what that sales rep's job is at the moment, right? So number one, there's like a data box. In here, we have to track all of our data every single day. right? Messaging assets, cold calling assets, warm calling assets, have some graphics there for teaching, and then daily resources such as like what do I do with downtime? Like, how do I start taking action if I have a free minute, and how do I do that starting closest to the money, right? So there's resources in here essentially as to how a rep can spend their time. So these are sort of the three main areas. Oops, sorry guys. These are sort of the three main areas that you want to be thinking about when you build the structure that allows a team to succeed. Right. So the three main areas again are going to be, do you have a visual of your steps? Do you have a pathway laid out where you've sort of documented how you currently execute on those steps? And then from those, have you written down just word for word what that looks like? Okay. That's like bare minimum permission to play, because without those things, your reps are going to come in and they're going to do it themselves, because oftentimes commission-based sales reps want to win. And so they will bring in other resources, other programs they've had. They'll say things in ways that maybe don't align with your brand values if you don't give them those things, right? And that's how you start to create friction and issues where it's like, gosh, how do I just make this land better? Okay. Any questions on that first one? Because I know it was kind of a lot. All right. So with all of that, what it allows for now is you have a standard, okay, which says, it takes sort of emotion out of having to coach your sales rep, which this can be sort of an emotional role, right? Because it's like sink or swim sort of things. So what happens is now it's like, if you ever have a sales rep off track, you can just point back to, well, this is how we do it. Let's watch your call and see where the gap is, right? And then you can look at the difference and coach them to the gap. So it really sets the tone and the stage for how things are done at your company, and allows for you to always point back to something unemotionally as their sales manager, or if you have a sales manager, they can do this for you to say, this is the way we do it. Cool? Awesome. Any questions so far, guys? Or I see the chats popping up. Let me pull it up here.
No, I think also one thing with this that was huge for us is we were in a growth phase, and I assume like a lot of people like Dania, Cole, especially if you're selling higher services, that's consultative, right? If you're in a consultative selling style, we wanted to know, we knew in mind, hey, we're going to have to hire multiple salespeople, and how would we judge them against each other? And without a standard, without a repeatable process, the only way we could judge people is just purely off of results. And really that goes to their innate ability rather than, hey, are they able to follow a process and a standard? And so it's been huge. I would say the SOP. So before Kyle came in, we had the flow down. Like you see that chart, we had the flow, but we didn't have what specifically the process within each one of those needed to be. And that's where Kyle's come in and really helped us go, hey, it's kind of all over the place. We need to button up, as Kyle would say, we need to button up, this one here, and going in and really looking at and solidifying what that script looks like in that specific one. So just as you're there and you're like, well, it's just me, the way to go from just you to other people was, hey, we had to know what this process looked like. And then it was the nitty gritty of what are the details in there. And even Luis, I'm sure too, in a retail setting, if we're not saying, hey, here's how you approach the customer, here's the opening that we have to approach the customer, here's when they tell you this, what's our process after that, creating that flow chart for them. So they're not like, well, yeah, I just didn't know what to do, and I just kind of let them. It's like, well, was that part of the process, or did you just kind of make that decision on your own? And it's been massive. I just want to share that because, Kyle, that's been a huge change for us, is actually having a standard to hold people accountable to.
And just because I'm not sure everyone's clear, but the reason it's important to have other metrics than just results. I mean, yes, sales is a results based. It's black and white. Did you or did you not get them across the line? But at the same time, if you're bringing on employees and you want to create the strongest relationship with them, sometimes you need to have progressions to, like, you're either cutting the mustard and you can stay or not. You want to have a progression to that, right? No one should be surprised that they're getting fired. And so having a process, and like what Will's saying, other ways to look and judge and reps, is because the most important thing about a rep is the cultural fit, which I'll get to at the end. But if you're only judging them on skill alone, it completely negates that. Where like you could have someone who's hungry, eager, honest, wants to get after it, but they just don't have the skill. They just need a little more coaching and time to get there, right? But if you're judging them on results alone, you'll never get the chance to coach them up and actually have them be a great part of your team. Who knows? Maybe they'd be super loyal because they're a great cultural fit, and God forbid you cut them out early just because you don't have sort of the standards in place. Okay, so I think that's worth mentioning. Awesome. So I'll keep rolling. Number 2 then, guys, consistency beats intensity. So this actually came from my CrossFit days, right? The main mantra there is like, you always teach mechanics first, like how do you actually do the thing? Number 2 is, can you be consistent with that, okay, over a long period of time? And then and only then do we add intensity, right? Because intensity is sort of the thing that's where the wheels can come off the wagon. That's like going from 1 sales call a day to 10, okay? So the way I'm framing consistency beats intensity, though, is more in terms of the support you give your sales team, all right? So what's good for our people is good for the company, and that's good for our clients. That's kind of my principle behind this. And so the consistency is really in 3 different areas. Number 1, the focus here is the consistent cadence of coaching for your setters and closers. Now, maybe your businesses don't have setters and closers. This could also just be a sales rep, right? However whatever you call your sales team, that's what I'm talking about here, is those people in that seat. And the consistent cadence you have for coaching them equals long-term relationship building. All right. This is really important. Okay. Because on a sales team, you're constantly depositing leadership capital where you're supporting your team. They're gaining more trust in you. They are feeling your support, but you also have to have the other side of the coin of holding them accountable to poor performance, which draws leadership capital out, right? So it's this constant ability to continually deposit the things you need where you're gaining trust from them so that you can, when needed, actually have the hard conversations, okay? That's why this is so critical. So the cadence there is going to be number 1, they should know when you have your next one-to-ones, right? Maybe it's a monthly cadence, maybe it's not, but you should never go longer than a single month without having at least half-hour one-to-one with every rep on your team. There's 2 parts to this, all right? The first part is like, yes, the results, okay? And the way that I focus on results is that's where I always start. Hey, Scott, you wanted to get 10 sales this month. Right now, you're at 8. Okay. So let's talk about like, that's what you projected. Can we maybe go ahead and look at number 2 now? Like, what's your pipeline look like? Right. Because we didn't quite get there. Oh, Scott's pipeline it's chock full. He's got tons of opportunities coming up. He's created new opportunities in the last month. So he's not worried about those 2 that he's missing because he's got all these opportunities that he's created. Okay, cool. Or maybe we look at the pipeline and he's done nothing. It's completely empty. It's disorganized. And he's got all these leads that have not been contacted in the last 21 days. Now we're going to drop down to level 3, which is activity, right? So it's always results, pipeline, and then activity, which is the worst feeling for a sales rep, mind you, which is why it's the last place we go. Because activity means open up your calendar. I want to see how you're spending your time. Okay, because that's like the most terrifying thing for a sales rep. We only put it last because it's the logical waterfall, right? As to like, well, if we don't have the results and the pipeline's empty, well, what are you actually doing, right? So we kind of let them save face by going through in that sequence. So from here now, we look at, if they don't know how to spend their time, or maybe they're spending on the wrong things, or maybe they're just not doing the work, and now that's a different conversation. But either way, they should know when this is coming up, because it keeps them thinking and being accountable for the results, for their pipeline, and for their activity, because they know those are the only 3 things we're going to focus on. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is going to be our daily huddles, right? So the support on this team right now, we meet every morning for 30 minutes. And, this is really important in terms of like team connection, team support, being humans, right? Having a laugh, talking about the impact we're having on our clients, like really building certainty and almost annoyingly recasting the vision as often as possible, right? We want to consistently beat the drum of where we're going, how we're getting there, and why it matters to those sales reps every single day. And so having a cadence, maybe it's not every day that you have it in your business, but they should know when you're going to have those huddles, and those should be just protected like a golden hour, okay? The last thing then is, how can they get support, and what expectations do they have around it? So for example, right now with Will's team, they have access to coaching every single day for an hour. It's at noon Central. It covers different areas. Monday is scripting, where we go through the script. If they're getting different feedback from the market, we can optimize that script. If it's not working, we can find a different way to ask a question, but it allows them to come in and sort of reinvent. If something's not working, they can find a new angle to go back and find a way to get more closes using the script. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we do objection handling with call review, right? So it's very John Wooden-esque. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but like, hey, don't do it this way, do it this way. Here's why what you did won't work. Here's why I would suggest doing it this, and it will work, right? And so it's very tactical. It's very, here's what they said, here's what you said, here's the gap that I'm seeing, very tactical coaching there. But it allows their reps to come in with their calls, right? And when I was in the sales seat, that was really fun for me because it allowed for me to feel like I was getting more than just compensation. So to your, I apologize, I forget who had asked about incentivization now, but you know, one of the huge incentives for sales reps, if they're like a good sales rep, okay, they want to get better. I'm telling you right now, the best sales reps are always trying to get better. And so if you can provide them with a platform of consistent training where maybe they don't get world-class overnight, but they can see progress, that's a huge pull for a sales rep to stay loyal, especially if they're pulling in big numbers for you. That's a huge incentive for them there, okay? So giving them the right support, having a consistent daily huddle where everyone's coming together, it's got that team feeling, you're focused on the vision, the results, and the impact it's having on clients. And then they also get the time on one-to-one support where they can go through results, pipeline activity. But then the other side of the one-to-one, I just remembered I forgot to mention, is the sort of emotional human side of things, right? I don't know if you guys have ever been a commission-only rep in a career. Having done that for 7 years, I can tell you it is challenging. You will hear no way more than you will hear yes. And if you are not good at managing emotions and dealing with rejection every single day, I personally don't believe in building thick skin. I believe in managing yourself effectively and dealing with the things that come up so that you can show up in your best state every single day. So if you have a manager, right, or if you're the manager, being able to sort of like set everything aside, like results included, and just be a human for them to like talk to and vent. Who knows, maybe something's going on at home, right? I find that that really gets a ton of buy-in from your reps because they see you now as not just looking at them like you're here to produce cash, one body's warm as the next. It's nope, you're a valued member of our team. We care a lot about you, and I'm going to give you the time and space you need to deal and respect to deal with whatever's coming up for you. And then we're also going to be able to have that other conversation about results. Okay. So those are the areas of consistency with the team in terms of support that I find really helps them get the most buy-in. They stay as loyal as they can, and they show up wanting to do more than what they're just paid for. Okay. Any questions on any of that, guys? And give me a little feedback. Is this helpful so far? Are we on track with stuff that's like valuable for you? Because again, this is kind of a newer presentation for me. Any feedback so far?
That's literally what we go through every day. Right? Like our SMART goals that we call them.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty much for like, you know, what's measurable, what's attainable, what is reachable, what is relevant to the company's growth, things like that. Those one-on-one calls. From the system that you have here, I am seeing that we probably lag on the huddles, right? We do huddles and we do like support, maybe not Zoom, but we do like team meetings once a month, right? It's not as frequent as probably we should. Maybe do a Zoom meeting and kind of have it available for everybody as a resource. Now that I'm kind of thinking about it now, maybe doing like a Zoom, like a kind of like what we do here, right? Every week we come together and just kind of get that extra support. I think as a company that'd be great for our employees to have, especially our sales team. I think that'd be great. So yeah,
Are you talking about the one-to-ones or the actual training?
Excuse me?
Did you say that you should have the one-to-ones or like actual sales training? Is that what you had mentioned?
Well, yeah. I mean, the one-on-ones, we have them, right?
Okay.
We have them. We should have those weekly through our managers and our sales. But what I'm saying is the extra support. I think it was number 3 because you have number 2, which is the huddles, and then number 3. Which one was number 3?
Just like support in terms of their skill sets, right? And like the actual execution of their job. Yep.
Yeah, so that's what we're working on right now. The support, that extra support to where because we don't have the systems of process. We don't have that visual, right? We don't have, so a lot of our customer, I mean, a lot of our sales teams is always, they get rejected a lot, right? They approach the customer, no, I don't want no help right now. and they come back, right? We have trainings on that, but we don't have it in a visual form to where they can study it on themselves, or we can go over it, daily, or they can go over it daily by themselves. We don't have that, right?
Yeah.
So we're working on that. I feel like we're on the right track, but I think this gave a lot of clarity, for sure. So just my feedback from that.
Yeah, just to point you in the right direction, one of the best things you can ever put into your sales reps' heads is if you have recordings of somebody actually making the sales that you want them to make, right? So in
Yes.
our world, like, we want to extract the sales calls, because we do ours on Zoom now. If we can keep all those Zoom calls in a folder, right, that we've won those clients over, that's the best thing you can have for, like, if you even have a new hire for onboarding, that's all they should be listening to for the first 2 weeks, right? Because it's like win, 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 win. And then beyond that, right? Like, Scott's a savage. Like, Scott's crushing sales, but even the best of the best, we start to get in our own heads, right? Maybe it's too good to be true, right? Then someone ghosts you, then a refund comes through, and it's like all of a sudden someone who's way up can come way down. So having the calls available, just like even in a Google Drive for your team that they can go back to and listen to and review, is probably the fastest way to sort of get them back on track with what was closing.
Yeah, I agree. And we did our first video of scenarios and how to counter, the pitches that the clients use and how to win them over, and then the errors that salesman did, and just point out those errors and what we could have done differently. And we do like a voiceover on top of that video.
Nice.
So yeah, so we started. I feel like we're in the right direction. We just don't have it unlocked yet, but very good intel, and I appreciate that, because I feel like we are in the right track.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Keep asking questions, man. I love it. This is just an example in terms of like support, right? So in one of the folders here, like I was mentioning, one of the easiest ways to not get as much money into your business is by letting time go by without taking revenue generating activities, right? So just as an example I threw up here, one of the things that the sales reps have access to is a list of priorities from highest to lowest leverage, meaning closest to the money, furthest from the money, right? And so it's like every day we want to be looking at our pipeline. We want to look at like what calls do we have coming up on the calendar that we need to prep for and confirm. And then from there, we have our hot lists, right? Anyone who didn't buy in the last 7 to 21 days, anyone who made a deposit, anyone who's reviewing the agreement, right? And then we can start to kind of move down further and further away from the money. But just having something like this for your team as well in those dead times, it drives me nuts when it's like, yeah, I didn't have a call show up, so I went and I got lunch with a friend. It's like, yeah, you can do that. But outside of being like the most skilled sales rep, the next thing you can do is ramp your activity up, right? And you can do that starting now. So if you have something that like you want your reps to do, just even organizing it like this is what I mean, that the process sets the standard. Like, hey, I know that your call canceled. Like, did you go and take the next action that was assigned to you? Right? Like, it allows for you to hold accountable to the process versus you nagging them or feeling like you're nagging them. You guys get that? So that's been very helpful as well. Awesome. Number 3, then. I'll keep rolling. I just noticed the time. I talk a lot, don't I? All right. Number 3, what gets rewarded gets repeated. All right. So encouragement is oxygen for the soul. All right. The notes I have here for myself are like, when my son, when he works really hard, so he's got like sensory processing stuff, and it's really hard for him to focus. So when he actually takes the time to sit down and focus and do a creative project or read a book or something, it's like I get down on one knee and I'm like, buddy, I am so proud of you. Like, you worked so hard at this. Like, I know it was challenging, but look at what you were able to accomplish by putting yourself in that position of working hard, right? And I reward that hard effort, okay? Humans are the same no matter how old you are. Like, everyone likes to be praised for the hard efforts they put into things. So one of the things that's so important is, like, on our daily huddles, like I was talking about in the mornings, we're always calling out like wins and celebrations, right? Like, what are the things that we took action on that we can celebrate? Because that is what is the only thing your sales reps can do, is they can only focus on the things they control, right? And if they're consistently showing up, they're taking action on the things they can control, if they're not getting their sales, right, they're still showing up for training, they're asking questions, they're staying engaged, they're not backing down from poor performance, that is what you want to reward, right? Because that now tells them, hey, this is a cool guy. He's super reasonable. He's actually supportive of me. And even though I'm not there yet, he knows I'm going to get there because I'm showing him through my ethic and my work that I'm going to do it, right? So that's what I found actually builds a ton of buy-in. So again, just to go back to the incentive question, these are all little things that stack, right? Because compensation, and I can talk about compensation plans and how you tier them and to drive more sales, but at the end of the day, all this other stuff that I'm talking about is what I find actually matters the most. It's your reps feeling like you care. And I don't know if you guys like heard in Scott's voice, like, I hope, Scott, you would feel this way and I can talk freely, but like Scott's told me, like, Kyle, I feel like you care about me. I feel like you're supporting me, right? That's how you know there's a strong relationship that you can have those hard conversations on. I think that's, I keep coming back to that because that's the number one area that makes it so challenging is you hire someone and like you develop this relationship and then you don't know how to have those hard conversations because you're afraid to like damage the relationship. And then God forbid you have to fire them because they're not performing, right? All of this builds up enough trust in a process that allows for those things to happen over time. And it also allows for a rep to realize in that process, I'm not cutting the mustard, I'm not doing the work. And so they coach themselves out, right? Because in the highest performance, if this is about getting the high performance out of people, we're going to coach them up, and it's either going to coach them up to success or it's going to coach them out because we're just clearly going to be putting on a pedestal the results they're not getting over and over again. And typically people don't want to be in that environment, so they'll just exit themselves. So it saves you the hassle of having to fire anybody, and it creates as much trust and rapport as you can with your team. So that's why I always say what gets rewarded gets repeated. And just a simple way to kind of manage that, right, is you can just have like a very simple spreadsheet with what you expect of your people every day. You know, are they hitting their numbers every day? And how close or how above and beyond the weekly goal are they doing those things? And if you every day are acknowledging the people that are hitting the minimums, but also going above and beyond, that's what really starts to drive culture for the highest performance that I've seen. Cool. All right, I'm going to keep rolling because I know we only got 10 minutes here. Number 4, big 3 is key. So this is the biggest part of the structure I think I want to hit on. But there's 3 touch points every day for high performing sales team. All right. Now, the number 1 we already touched on is the start of the day. That's the focus huddle. This is where we want to, and I'll just share the calendar here quick. This is where like the sales huddle is in the morning. It's like we're focusing on the opportunities ahead. We're getting tactical, right? We're like putting our minds in that place of, yes, we get our clients results. This is why it's so amazing. Here's all the clients we've helped so far. Here's all the prospects that we're excited to go connect with. Like we just get ourselves completely focused on what's coming for the day. And we also call out, like Babe Ruth, our projections, right? This is what we're going for. This is the number 1 thing that produces rep accountability, is them owning their numbers. You can't own their numbers for them. So them being in a place of being supported and knowing that they are allowed to call their own shots, and then you're supporting them to hit that, that's what, again, allows them to sort of feel in control and have that autonomy to go out and smash. The middle of the day then is just that support. So we offer a 1-hour call. You guys can kind of see here, right, the different calls that we have: scripting, objection handling, a Q&A, and then we do a sales call recording breakdown that's like a full sales call breakdown. And we offer that every day. So the reps can come, they can get support. But, you know, if you've ever been in sales and you had a tough morning, like if you go 3 calls back to back and you don't close, it's nice to have a little support in the midday there that you can go refresh your mind, get clear on some stuff, and go back to hit the second half of the day. And then the last piece is the end of day reporting, right? This is just going back, doing the diligence of reporting all the notes, everything on the client, putting it in the CRM, updating the leadership team, right? Having your KPIs tracked, which is just like the performance numbers and all that, so that we're ready to start the next day fresh and can review at the huddle, right? And so those 3 touch points is what I find keeps most sales reps on point, focused, and allows them to sort of own the results they're producing every day while supporting them through that. Cool? Cool. And then last piece here, that's just a daily huddle example, the KPI examples, end of day report example. I'm going to keep rolling, guys, if that's all right. And if you guys have any questions on any of this stuff, I can always send you this slide, and I've got tons of other trainings too if you have any questions for me after this. I say that now because we're getting a little short on time. Number 5, culture trumps everything. So I'm curious if you guys, this has ever happened to you. I was on an account one time, and we were doing multiple 6 figures a month. the company grew. I was employee number 4, and we grew to 27 employees in like 45 days. It was nuts. It was too much. But we were all top level executors. And what happened is, on paper, right, the process, we were doing everything right. We were doing everything right. Everyone was, hitting their KPIs. They were, they were taking the actions that were required for them to fulfill the process in all parts of the business, but it wasn't working. And we were actually starting to lose clients. Sales started to slip. And if you've ever been in that position where it's like everything looks right, but it's not working, that's where I will tell you it's a culture issue. Okay. And this is why I say way earlier in this call that you want to be able to sort of not just judge your team based on results alone, right? Like, yes, results drive who's on the team long term, but in the medium to short term, the culture is the most important thing, which is like hiring around your values, your mission, and your vision, right? Those sorts of things. And so if a company is doing everything right on paper and the results don't follow, it's the culture. So how do you create a great sales team culture? So it's a match of the vision with your values and your standards. Okay. So the vision is like, what are you casting a vision big enough that the goals are so big that one of your sales reps can see they can hit their own personal goals just as a part of it. Right. So for example, one of the accounts I was on, like one sales rep came in and their goal was to earn $500,000 that year. Okay. And so, but the owner's vision was only to get to like $4 million. And so it very quickly showed how the founder had to have a larger vision, right, that would actually support that sales rep being able to do enough volume and activity to hit their personal goal, right? And so that's one area that a lot of times maybe we kind of get away from as owners, getting sucked into operations and doing all the work in the business, is it's really important for those sales reps to come in and see what they're marching towards. And then beyond that, how their role fits into accomplishing that, right? How they contribute to the whole. So that's the first piece there. The second piece is values, right? This is so important. Like you can't, on the flip side of things, what I always say is like, you can hire a coach and buy their course, but you can't hire a coach and have them care, right? And so that's why it's so important for you guys to be clear on the values of your business, because when you interview people and you really get to know them, when it comes down to making hard decisions, right, you're not going to be at every meeting, every sales call, be there with them every step of the way. And if they don't share your values and you're giving them the ability to make decisions on your behalf, they might make decisions that cause conflict later on. And in fact, I'll tell you, they will make decisions that cause conflict later on. So having the vision, having the values aligned is like the core of what makes the sales team work. And then you pair that then with the standards of the process, right? And so those are really the three components that when you have those three, they're vibrant, they're alive, you talk about them, they're a part of your decision making, your hiring, your firing, like everything. That's what starts to really bring people together of shared values who want to win together, who are going to hold themselves up to be accountable and continue to do things in everyone's best interest. And again, it just comes from knowing where the company's heading. Do they know how their role drives towards that vision? And do they understand, are the tasks that they do to help get there clear? And are they rewarded when successful? Again, are we rewarding the things that we want repeated? Other pieces that go into this that I'll share, this comes from the book Good to Great with Jim Collins, but the foxhole mentality, right? So like we call our sales team the foxhole. It's like the people that come into that sales team, they are warriors. They're like here to go out. They don't ask, how many the enemy are. They ask where the enemy are. That sort of mentality, right? And it's like we want to steep ourselves in this mindset every day, because as a sales team, we live and die together. The setters who set the calls for the closers, if they're struggling, so are the closers. And on the flip side, if the closers are struggling, the setters aren't getting paid what they could be because their calls aren't converted, right? And so we need the team, even though sales is a very individualistic sort of role, the team has to gel enough where they're supporting each other to make the system work, right? So that's where sort of having a foxhole mentality And then again, just constantly beating the drum of where we're going, how we're going to get there, throwing in fun, right? Like at those meetings, keeping it human, but then also keeping everyone accountable and having them own what they say they're going to own in terms of their projections and what they're bringing in. Okay. I'll pause there just for time's sake, guys. That is the 5 immutable laws that I have seen personally for managing sales teams and scaling to 100K plus per month. Any feedback on that? Any questions? Just would love to hear from you guys for just a few minutes or anything at all.
Kyle, I just want to say, first off, I don't think I've seen the word immutable in my lifetime. So I got to just say, man, I don't know how you snuck in immutable in there. I was like, I don't think I've ever heard that word before. That's sneaky, but that was awesome. I just want to say thank you so much for being willing to do that. I know time's running out for a lot of us here, guys. Does anyone have any questions for Kyle? Any feedback, or even, I'm sure, just like one thing that we found super helpful? I know a lot of you guys are busy or on mute. But yeah, any feedback would be great for Kyle. And then Kyle, I've got one question for you before we wrap up. Yeah. Cool. Luis, anybody, any feedback or thoughts?
That was great. I don't really have a sales team, so
yeah.
But it was very knowledgeable. I took a lot of notes, and I think I can definitely head in the right direction now. Probably need some more help down the road when we start growing, but I would say I really like the vision, values, and standards. I think that's a really good, solid foundation to make sure everybody knows.
Yeah, so. Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate the feedback.
Yep.
Kyle, my question for you, man, or Luis, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just my feedback on the, maybe we don't reward by acknowledging as much as we should be, right? So I think that was a really good feedback on my end. I know that, we're working hard diligently on this, and, hopefully that, with this, I'm gonna re-see this, and I'm probably gonna show it to my operations manager, because I think this is like something that we already have our values, we have our structure, we just don't have the system of how to carry it through. So, that's something that we're working on, and I really appreciate this, this video, just because it's so much information that we can use. So thank you.
Absolutely. No, thanks for the feedback, man.
Yeah. Kyle, I have one question for you, man. If you are handing off sales for the first time, right? Because you've helped us through this transition from founder sales to training a team up to do it your way, which Colt will probably be the first hire at some point when you're delegating sales of, hey, we've got our way. So for those of you who've come into the program in the last 8 months, prior to that, we sold very technically. Like Alex had this whole flow chart and was going through different things. And Alex's brain, Alex is the one who's created all of our financial systems, was a technical brain, right? He's like, hey, well, tell me about your tax situation. Here, let's write new. And it was very much a coaching, teaching experience that actually hurt us on the sales process side because it wasn't repeatable. I mean, we would have had to found a CFO essentially to be our salesperson. I can't think of anybody else who could sell in that way. It was so technical. So Kyle, just as we have a lot of folks who are like, hey, I'm probably gonna need to, maybe the salesperson's gonna be my first hire. How do you recommend transitioning from founder sales? I know how I do it. It's gonna be really easy for someone else hitting that realization of like, crap, they can't just do it exactly as how I do it. Any advice just for making that transition?
Yeah, build the structure first, right? So the biggest pain in your butt will be if you bring someone on and you don't have the proper resources to support them. So it is a bear. That's actually, I think, what you guys had mentioned to me was like the most helpful is like I was able in 24 hours to come in, drop in a process, all the scripts, every asset needed for the sales team, handle all the coaching calls, handle all the morning huddles. And so like if it's just you may have to look at a couple different areas. So one is like what again would be the meeting cadence, okay? Like how, like the time in your calendar that you're actually chunking off, that's number one, as well as then if you're not going to do, let's say, coaching calls, you're going to need a time to review how they're selling. So if it's like on a Zoom call, you got to do a call review. If it's in person, it sounds like with Luis, maybe you guys, I don't know if you can video record of any kind, but there has to be some review of how they're executing your process. And you've got to have time in your calendar for that. You also have to have time for that one-to-one. So maybe it's not every week, but at least every month you're meeting with that person, you know, letting them vent on the human side, also handling the results focus type stuff. But not having that structure in place, they're going to come in, you're going to have issues, and then you're going to scramble backwards trying to set it up, and you're going to lose confidence because they're going to be looking to you for answers and you don't even have them yet. So it affects your confidence as a leader, which is the worst place to be when you're leading a sales team. So getting the structures, everything in place, all the assets built out first, even if it takes you a little bit longer on the front side, consistently expedites the backside, because what often happens when you're hiring is you want to start by hiring 2 for every role, because it's going to give you good feedback as to who's actually going to be the best performer, right? And then it allows for you to, when that first salesperson fails, you have to replace them. Now, every person you bring in, you can expedite that onboarding process, and they fall right into that same structure. So it just completely expedites your time and saves you confidence in the long haul. Does that help, Will? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say too, for everyone, if anyone's got to run, just probably 30 more seconds here, a minute. That one of the biggest things I think I came away with was, if you don't come from a sales background, having worked in a sales role, if you were the one who's just great at the service, the developing the product, or you were the marketer, so many of us were great at the service, and then you become the owner of the service, and you've never actually been a sales rep before. It is a different world and a different ball game. And until I met Kyle, and Kyle was in with us every day, I was like, oh, these are the expectations. These are the standards that we need to be setting. When you're the owner, or at least in my experiences, I'm doing 25 different things at sales. When it's sales times, it's happening. And then it's like, I have these other things to do. But when you're a sales rep and you've got X amount of meetings booked or times, you have this other time that I never thought about what to do with that time, because I was just always like, okay, I got to put out this fire. I got to put out that fire. I got to do this. And it's way different to see someone who's like, okay, what do I do now? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never thought about what's the process for when I have time to actually like sit and think about things. And to watch Kyle come in, like, here's what you do with your time. Here's how to use it. Here's how, like, we've become so much more effective and productive just by having someone who knows what a standard in this field is. Like, it's been a huge lesson for us. It makes so much sense. Obviously it's like a duh kind of thing, but now that we've seen it, witnessed it, I'm like, we were so underperforming because I didn't know what that standard looked like, because I've never been a sales rep, like just a true sales rep in my life. So just really fascinating stuff. It's been so grateful. We're super grateful to have found Kyle and to take us through this. Kyle, thank you so much, man. Guys, if you have any last questions, you can always post them in school. Kyle's in our school group as well. So if you have any questions, you can tag Kyle there. This will be posted up in the school community probably in the next few hours. It takes a little bit for Zoom to process it, and then Natasha will get it up there. But Kyle, any last words? Any last thoughts?
I mean, I have a ton of like just trainings and resources I've put together. If you guys, go to sleep and come up with a question tomorrow, hit me up in school, just send me a message. I'm happy to really send you anything I have just to get you pointed in the right direction. If you have any sort of challenges with sales right now, I don't want anyone to struggle to sell the things that people need. So hit me up. I'm here to support you guys.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Kyle, huge thank you to you. Everybody, thanks for jumping in. Luis, Colt, especially, thank you so much for being willing to participate and jump in. And we'll see you guys next Thursday. We're going to be, I have to double check on what we're going to be covering, but I will get back to you and let you guys know. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kyle.